Good afternoon, everybody. This is once again Ted the Speed Learner, and as I slowly approach my 100,000 view goal, I decided to come out here. It's quiet, but most importantly, in its own way, this is about the only home I've ever really understood. Let me tell you something, when life throws me curveballs, and life definitely does that, I don't get all fidgety or whatever. Instead, I come here to find my center point again, to remember who I am, remember what I am, so on and so forth. This is a place that keeps me centered, and I think you can see why. But there is a story behind all this. I was here on July 4th, 1976. Yes, the bicentennial year. I'll never forget that day. I had just left a school where there were no gray areas. In that school, there was the right and the wrong, the truth and the lie. But there were no gray areas. Now you would say, well, that's a horrible place to be. Not really, because in that place you knew who you could trust and who you couldn't. You knew people in a way that in the rest of the world you couldn't know. And it's because of that school that I make this video now. First, I'm going to tell you the story of July 4th, 1976, and then I'm going to explain what I mean by knowing somebody. On July 4th, 1976, I came over here. It was the bicentennial year, and they were having the 4th of July celebration. It was a wonderful day. I was 6 years old, and I walked, believe it or not, all the way across here. Now, at the time, there were vendors everywhere. You couldn't believe how much food was out here. People were picnicking. There was boom boxes. This is where I got my love of old 70s music. Man, did it sound sweet out here. And the food was great. You could smell the fried chicken. You could smell the hamburgers and the hot dogs and anything else you could possibly smell. The soda pop just flew everywhere. Well, actually not flew, but it just kind of poured everywhere. And you couldn't have gone hungry or thirsty out here. Not that day. But what was even more spectacular was the boats. There were boats all across the lake. Hundreds of boats. And when the sun went down, one of the boats had 200th anniversary spelled right on it in fireworks. It was sparklers. Beautiful thing. And the fireworks show, I cannot tell you guys, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. It's a day that will forever live in my memory. It was the happiest day of my life. So why tell you all this? Because of an incident that happened in my school several years later. A local news team came to our school and was signing autographs. And I told them, I said, well, sign an autograph for me. And they said, well, who are you? I couldn't believe it. They didn't know who I was. That's because I had lived in a world where everybody knew who I was. But these people had never lived in that world. They didn't know anything about me or why I was the way I was. Well, when I finally told them my name, they signed it, and I still got the picture to this day. But these people did not know me. I know I'm kind of walking back and forth, just kind of showing you all this stuff. That's been one of my biggest problems, is that people just don't know who I am. They assume things, but they shouldn't. There's a lot of things they assumed about me, but they really should not. And that's why I'm here today. I'm going to tell you people who I am. You already know I was out here on July 4th, 1976. And because of what happened that day, anytime I feel any kind of an emotional stress whatsoever, I come out here to recenter myself. Because this is one place I do understand. I understand this place better than anywhere. In a way, this is my home. And always will be. I was in 4-H for a while. Wrote books. Still got them. Books were my life. I've been surrounded by books for years. I read a lot of books. A lot of people say, well, when you were an adolescent, you're in your teenage years, why didn't you just start doing drugs? Well, in a way I did. And this is mine. That's right. See that music player? That's my drug. I'd sit there and listen to Barry Manilow, Lionel Richie, the Bee Gees, all that great 70s stuff. When I was a junior in high school, I went to the Decatur Area Vocational Center, spent 2 years there learning how to program in COBOL. Well, that wasn't too hard for me. After all, I had already been in a school in which there were no gray areas. There was just the one or the other, the good path and the bad path. So flowcharting was nothing for me. I figured out COBOL real quick. There was only one kid that did more COBOL programming than I did in that school. Yes, I did talk to him years later. In some ways, he actually envies me. His life, in some ways, is more out of balance than mine. And I thought my life was out of balance. Boy, from what he told me, yeah. Sometimes making it to the top is not always worth it. But I did manage to get a chance to program not only on a server client system. Yeah, of course back at that time it was called a server dumb terminal system. But I also got to program on Tandy Radio Shack number 80 computers, the TRS-80. That's where I learned the beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code. Like I said, when I was in school, because of what I had been through, it wasn't too hard for me to do what I did. But it was about that period of time that they asked me to learn Spanish. I refused, because I had been told that there was this core language called Latin, and it came from Rome, Italy. So I chose to learn Italian instead. I've become pretty proficient in it. Obviously, you've seen that on my videos. That's why I teach it. I love Italian. I love it a lot more than Spanish. Now, I'm not saying I'll ever learn Spanish. It's just I wanted to learn Italian first. So there you go. Okay. Well, people say to me, well, you're such a smart kid, I bet you never flunked a class. That's not true. Flunked geometry twice. Once in high school, once in college. And that's because the teachers didn't bother to tell me about Euclid's elements. And that's why I'm teaching it to you. Had I been taught that, I probably would have passed with flying colors. So much for that. But I also flunked the driving part of driver's ed. Well, at least the first time I did. Second time I didn't. And that's because I had troubles backing up the car. I could drive forward great. Reverse was a little bit of a different story. But I managed to get out of high school with a 3.275 GPA, and I went to Richland for 3 years. According to the college credits, I made it to a sophomore in college until the Pell Grant ran out. And he said, well, wait a minute, they still got a Pell Grant. Yeah, as soon as you get a job, you don't get a Pell Grant anymore. There you go. That's why I don't have a Pell Grant. Anyway, the point is that I'm a pretty smart cookie. That's nothing to what happened to me back in 1994. But before I tell you that story, I'm going to pause this video and then I'll continue in part 2. Stay tuned.